Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Loeb.
Hey everyone, I am really excited to introduce today's guest, Jeff Westphal. Jeff is an accomplished executive, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and the author of a new book, A Work Life Worth Living. While building and leading a billion-dollar company, Jeff came to a pivotal realization. Professional success alone does not guarantee a meaningful work life. A work life worth living emerged from Jeff's own search for meaning, what he found, what he lost, and what he had to relearn. Today, he shares that journey to help others create deeper meaning in their own work lives through his book and as the founder of meaningsphere.com. Please join me in welcoming Jeff Westphal. Welcome, Jeff.
Hi, Tammy. Good to be here.
Great to have you. So, Jeff, on Work from the Inside Out, we love to begin at the beginning. So take us there, your formative years. How did they inform where you are today? Or did they?
I've grown to appreciate the impact of those early years when it came to my later career more as I've gotten older. My parents met at Drexel University. Both were the first of their immigrant families to attend university. I remember when my father's university was finally paid off. I was 13. My father was German, and his parents had an upholstery and design shop in Pelham, New York. My mother, Antoinette Passo, was Italian, and her father had a book and pamphlet bindery in central Philadelphia. I was born in Camden, New Jersey. My father was working for Educational Testing Service. He went to school for technology and was working at one of the early mainframe computer sites. We moved to the Philadelphia suburbs to be closer to my mother's family. I had the opportunity to work at the book and pamphlet bindery. So I stood by a machine all summer long in the heat and picked up pamphlets and counted them and made sure that the staples were properly seated, and then stacked them in a truck and then help label and pack them, and off they would go. And side by side with Italian-speaking union workers, and the treat of the day was my grandfather buying me a Coke at lunchtime. So that is my fond early memory. I took the train from the suburbs into the city like a business person with all the commuters. And I felt like a grown-up at 12 years old.
Wow, 12.
My youth is marked by a lot of what I call the real work of the world, right? I was riding my bike to a landscaping shop, and it was all people of Latin American descent and one white kid from the suburbs planting plants at corporate campuses. One summer, I moved furniture at Beacon's Moving and Storage. Another summer with a lot of guys I wouldn't meet in my neighborhood who were union furniture movers, working with those guys and getting to know what those guys were about. I made hoagies at the Jersey Shore at a sandwich shop, right? And I worked during school as well. I was the computer room geek facilitator. So I had all these working experiences, and I was from entrepreneurs on both sides of the family. Risk takers who came across the ocean for a better world, and not well educated. My grandfather had an 8th grade education, and I was proud of that. And I remember vividly when I found out that some people looked down on Italians. In the 60s, it was like, what? Here, I was so proud of my grandparents. And then I learned that some people looked down at Italians, and that was a shocking day in my early teens. I loved it. I felt so lucky to have had this colorful experience as a child, as my parents were striving, as many of their generation, to live the American dream. But I had a healthy dose of immigrant work. You
had a lot of experiences in many different places and had that work ethic, just rolled up your sleeves and did whatever was available to you.
That's exactly right. But it didn't transfer to school.
Oh, yeah.
I tested really well.
Yeah.
And I knew I felt smart. I felt I can hang with these kids.
Yeah.
But I found school to be pointless. I never got the purpose of school.
Yeah.
And so I underperformed. It was
Yeah.
a bit of passive aggressive behavior, not giving my parents everything they wanted because I felt a lot of pressure to perform.
Yeah.
I managed a nice, steady B- average,
Uh-huh.
doing as little as I possibly could. But
Yeah.
a B- I felt would keep me from getting physically harmed by my father if he got really angry.
Oh, wow.
So I was a chronic academic underperformer,
Yeah.
even though I knew the material. It was just a question of what I chose to do. It had nothing to
Right.
do with my intellectual ability.
I can relate to what you're saying because I enjoyed from a young age onward either doing volunteer work or paid work. And I always liked that hands-on experience versus sitting in a classroom talking about things theoretically rather than just having that direct experience with things. And I think there's a huge difference.
I think so. And I was that guy in junior advanced placement calculus at Conestoga High School in suburban Philadelphia when the teacher, a wonderful person, Mrs. Tucker, asked me a question. I said, I don't know. She goes, did you do the homework, Jeff? And I thought, I'm not going to lie to her. So I said, no, I didn't, because I don't see the point of any of this. I have no idea when I'm going to ever use this. I don't even remember what we learned last week. So no, I didn't do the homework. I'm sorry. I was not popular in high school
Yeah.
because I had this weird, it came from my father. There was a lot of lectures at the dinner table about you be your own person. Don't just go along to get along, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think more of it rubbed off on me than I thought. I wasn't trying to be a rebel. I just couldn't go along.
Yeah.
So I wasn't popular.
Yeah. So take us forward from there. You did go to college, it sounds like.
I did. I went to the University of Richmond. As I said, my scores were pretty good. So I actually went on an academic scholarship and loved it, but struggled to follow the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Got involved in a lot, found rugby, became captain of the rugby team, was on a few things that the dean invited me to participate in. And ultimately, I got an award for most influential junior student, which is a bit of a turnaround because my freshman year, I actually was invited to live off campus for a few months because I got involved in, let's just say, poor behavior.
Yeah.
I didn't injure anyone, but there was some property damage that I was associated with. So I was like the dean's turnaround story at the University of Richmond and graduated ultimately with honors and got into George Washington University Law School. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. A friend of mine who was a year older and was a bit of a mentor to me, he was going to law school. So I thought, oh, that's a good idea. In hindsight, I know I was just trying to postpone growing up.
Yeah.
And that 1 year of law school, I did finish in my top half of my class, but I went back to hang out with my friends at the University of Richmond 15 weekends, including going on spring break with that group. My spring break was a different week. So I bagged a week of law school and went to spring break and called home to wish my sister a happy birthday. My mother says, where are you? And I'm like, Key Largo. Yeah, I had no idea what privilege meant back then, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have any idea how lucky I was. And when I got home, my father, quite understandably, pounded the table and said, get a job. It was the best thing because I wasn't made out for the law. And after painting houses, hanging sheetrock and doing manual labor that summer and looking for work, I managed to land a job as an account executive at an ad agency and loved the challenge of it, the interest of it, the people, the clients. It was just wonderful and fun. And I felt like I could succeed with it. I did completely forget, and this is in my book, I completely forgot about Amnesty International and community service and all these larger world perspectives that I developed in college that were such a source of passion.
Yeah.
And all of that went out the window because it's like I just got focused on work. I don't even know why it was, honestly.
Yeah.
But, they call it the Sunday scaries now.
Yeah.
I had that bad. I would literally drive 30 minutes into the office and work for 3 or 4 hours on Sunday night just because I felt uncomfortable not doing that. So I was ready for the week. And today my kids would say, Dad, you had anxiety, but I wouldn't even have known how to label it.
Except
So
the
there
Sunday
you go.
scaries, though, I often hear are people who are anxious but scared in a negative way. It sounds like you were trying to get prepared. I'm not saying that was the healthiest way to go about it, but at the
Right.
same time, it sounded like you enjoyed the job.
I loved the job, but I wouldn't say that it was like a thoughtful, strategic I'm going to advance. And so to be really well prepared, I need to be organized. Sunday night's an opportunity. No, it was anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
How long were you with the ad agency?
I was with one ad agency for 1 year.
Yeah.
And on the social side, I was still trying to keep the rugby party life going while I was also in advertising. And that side of it was starting to worry me. And I woke up one day with just a clear signal, I need to go home. So I went and got a job at a little bit of a promotion. I got a job at an agency near where I grew up in Philadelphia. So where I was working was in Washington, D.C. And so I went to a large agency in Philadelphia with a little better position and did well there as well. Met the woman who would be my wife, and we just celebrated 37 years of wedded bliss. After a year and a half or so at the Philadelphia agency, where I'd gotten a promotion and was going pretty well, I got a call from one of my former colleagues saying, hey, Marriott is looking for a regional marketing director for Roy Rogers. And I think you'd be a good fit. You should interview for it. So I did and got the job offer and thought, okay, 2 agencies, 2.5 years in advertising, go client side, probably good. And my fiance, Jennifer, and I went to my parents' home and announced that I'd accepted a position in Washington and we'd be moving together down to the DC area. And I don't know exactly the sequence, but I remember my mother saying, why don't you go help your father with the grill? And so I go out to the grill and my father looks at me and says, only words he ever said about joining his company, which he started it and had now grown to 28 people. He says, how would you like to come work at Vertex? And I looked at him and said, okay. That was the whole conversation. And that was typical for a conversation with my father and I. He was not a conversationalist.
Not verbose, huh?
Not verbose. So I said, okay. And then I called the Marriott and told them something I didn't expect it happened, and I'm going to do this. And I went to work, and on my first day of work, my father offered me $5,000 less salary than I had gotten at Marriott. So we had argument number one.
Oh my goodness.
And to put this in context, right? It's not like my dad and I had this wonderful, cozy friendship, fathership, mentorship kind of relationship. I lived in serious fear of my father my entire childhood.
Wow.
And you wouldn't describe our relationship as close. It was clearly he was to be feared, and that was my role. And so I looked back at that now over many years and with a lot of self-reflection and realized that that wasn't a career move. I had no idea why I said yes, but in hindsight, it was a gasp at the hope of maybe having some respect for my father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really changing that relationship.
It did not start out that way for the first few years.
Yeah.
I was doing great. The company was doing great. The company grew fourfold and we were taking off largely because of demand from the outside. I did my part. Everybody did their part. But my father and I were completely not eye to eye. And then another interesting thing happens. Speaking of my father not saying much, Philadelphia Inquirer calls and says, we'd like to do a story on your company. They had a guy who focused on entrepreneurs and stuff. And he comes in and says, interviews my father. I'm sitting there, which I felt privileged to be in the room. I'm 28 years old at this point. And my father, the man says, what are your plans for the future of the business, Ray? And my dad says, Jeff will succeed me as CEO. That was the whole conversation.
Wow. And you're hearing this at 28.
In front of a reporter. And my eyes were like, what? And I thought, wow, okay. And then I thought, oh my gosh, what about my colleagues? What about these women and these men who I've been working with and learning from who are older than me? The people who built the company. What about my family? What about my sisters and my mother? I knew instantly he didn't talk to anybody else about this, right? He probably had some conversation with my mother privately, and so I saw the interviewer, the reporter out, and I ran back to my father's office and I'm like, Dad, thank you. And have you thought about what you're going to say to name? And he just looked at me. This is his turn for his eyes to pop out. He hadn't thought about what anybody would think. They were all going to learn this news in tomorrow's newspaper.
Wha-
So that was an interesting thing. And so when I first read, and now this is where the future unfolds
Yeah.
fast, is shortly after that, a consultant who was introduced to me through one of our employees, who's a friend of mine, gave me a copy of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. And I was trying to apply the idea of seeking to understand at home and at work, and
Mhm.
very rough. But I had a couple of epiphanies and I realized I should do this with my father. And
Mhm.
so I started asking him questions about his point of view rather
Yeah.
than pounding him with my point of view and pushing him about all the things I thought we
Right.
should do.
Yeah.
And then he's looking like the opposition. I'm like, Dad, what do you think about? How did this happen? And whoa, did he open up like in ways I had never experienced in my entire life. Next thing we're taking these long walks together and he is just downloading. And it was awesome, but it was also frightening. He didn't tell me anything scary, but it was just my father's now confiding in me.
Yeah.
And,
It was like
you
a
know,
whole different person in some ways, right?
and and now I look back at 64 myself and I look back and I go, who would he have ever had a chance to confide in like that?
Some questions like that.
Probably no one.
Because he
Probably
put
no
up
one.
he had all these walls he was putting up, right?
And in that generation of men, you probably wouldn't even share those things with your wife,
Yeah.
right? And my mom certainly would have been receptive. She was just an amazing person.
Mm.
But I suspect much of it he didn't even share with her. And so we went through this really tremendous catharsis and transformation. It never got to be like close. Ultimately, in his 80s, when he was in dementia and fading in dementia, I'd say our relationship got close, but
Yeah.
not until then. There were no I love yous. There were no I'm proud of yous. There was none of that, right? So anyhow, that was pivotal. And that man, Jim Patton, a former DuPont executive who gave me the 7 Habits book or helped me build on that work, started asking me all these, what I now know are esoteric questions, all these open-ended, confusing questions like, how do you expect to energize the field? And I'm like, field of what? What do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or what do you plan to contribute to the greater whole?
Mhm.
What are you talking about? And then he says, what's your vision? I'm like, now I'm like 30 at this point, 31, 32. What's your vision? And I'm like, 2020? Here on paper, I look like I've got it all going on for a 32-year-old.
Yeah.
Kicking butt. The company's
Yeah.
growing, sales are great. Supposedly people like me at work. I'm learning, I think, how to be a leader. I'm learning how to listen to people. And this guy who looks like Mr. Chips, just the most unassuming, humble, most loving human I've ever known is, "Ooh, how do you think about the relationship between function, being, and will?" And I'm like,
I love it.
but I had to know what he knew. I had the good fortune, the company was growing. I had the good fortune of access to resources to hire him as a coach. And he was working with me every week. And then I was able to hire him as facilitator because I'd become enamored with the idea of collaboration because the listening led me to realize our problem is we're just working past each other
Yeah.
constantly. And look, without his help, there's no way I or the company get to where we got to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he was the steadying force that held the space for us before
Mhm.
I knew how to do that,
Yeah.
so that we, the original leadership team,
Yeah.
myself included, learned how to actually collaborate.
I want to point something out too, though. And this is me with my coaching hat on. You had to be receptive and open to all of those esoteric questions from day one to step into all of that, though. There was something about the way he engaged you and you reading the 7 Habits and all of that that sparked something within you that was already there, and you stepped right into it and showed up for it. I would say that if it wasn't him, it might have been something else that would have also shown up.
Yeah, thank you. I did go after the knowledge and take real risk, right?
Mhm.
My dad didn't
Oh,
have any. So the other person who deserves credit though is my wife, because one day on a Friday, I come home, it's a beautiful day. I'm like, we're going to go camping in the mountains. I got a pickup truck. We've got dog, little children. Let's go. Right. Just like the old days. And I come home all full of piss and vinegar. We're going to go to the mountains. And she just looks at me and she's, no way. I start cajoling and doing my dance, this winter over. Right. And she's just, not happening. My wife's 5 feet, tiny human, more powerful pound for pound than anybody on the planet. And I'm like, and all of a sudden it just dawns on me. I'd read the Covey book 2 months before.
yeah.
It just dawns on me. Do the seek to understand thing.
Yeah. Do the seek to understand thing. Yeah.
So set aside what you want, just like it says in the book, and just focus on her. And I'm like looking at her and I'm like, what does she want? Really, it was that simple. And I was that baffled. Then all of a sudden it was like, oh, holy, she cares about the children. She wants to make sure the children are going to be safe. She doesn't want to just throw everything in the truck. We've got a 3-year-old, we've got a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a new infant. And I'm like, let's just go. And she's just, are you nuts? And I was like, oh my God, she's right. I am nuts. I'm telling you, Tammy, it was like a lightning bolt hit me. I know exactly where we both were standing. The chopping block I got her for Christmas was right in the middle of the kitchen. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And then my next thought was like, oh, what about the employees? I actually have no idea what they really think. If I didn't know my own wife like this, it was truly a lightning bolt.
Wow.
And it changed my life forever. And I still struggle mightily to actually understand another person from their point of view. But that moment has proven to be truly the greatest gift ever.
Yeah.
So
Love
yes, so I'll take credit for being knocked over the head with a 2x4, thanks to Stephen Covey and Jim Patton. But man, I was as clueless could be.
You came around though. So
All right.
you got a clue. You got a clue somewhere. So
yeah. Unfortunately, there were more 2x4s to come.
yeah, I see a few dents in your head. I can see them
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. So clearly we know you became the CEO of Vertex. You stuck around.
It did happen. Yeah.
And you clearly grew and built this company. And when I first read that you were CEO of Vertex, my first thought was, oh, the pharmaceutical company.
Everybody says that.
Right? But it's not. So tell us a little bit about Vertex and your time there. And you have since stepped away from that. So take us forward.
Yeah. So thanks to the incredible people, the tax, technology, sales, marketing, service, support, finance people at Vertex Inc., we were able to build the heavy duty industrial strength tax processing technology that's behind all the major brands you think of, all of your phone, all of your telecom providers, all of the Starbucks, Amazon, Apple, 10,000 major global corporations. Behind the scenes, when you do business with them, they're leveraging Vertex information and technology to charge the right tax at the right time and get the right amount to the right jurisdiction. And the company is the best at it in the world and it has dominant market share leadership and has for 30 years. And what I was gifted from Jim and my team was the awareness that my role was to try to create an environment where these wonderful experts could work well together, and that trying to be expert like them was never going to work. A, I was not going to be that guy. And B, no one person could ever be that man or woman who could do that. It's way too complicated. And so we became all about building a culture and a process that would encourage people to be able to hear and understand each other and create new value together better than you could otherwise. It wasn't nirvana, full stop. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, we grew a ton and we were tremendously profitable and the company went public for multiple billions in value and all that good stuff. What I'm proudest of is that for nearly 20 years in an industry with 17% average turnover, our turnover rate for all that time that I was fortunate to be able to lead the company was 4.5%.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
Now, having a great company with a great business model and a great market, full stop. Yeah, that'll get you a long way. But I think the culture mattered.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
But one of the things that I want to make sure, though, I share with you, and I know you get this probably more than anybody I've met, and that is that I think a lot of people think that the only way they can feel fulfilled at work is to find a vertex with the leadership group like we had in that special moment where the company's growing and the people care and the values are evident and you know you're cared for, you know you're loved as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And then your career will be fulfilling and you can feel good about work. It certainly isn't a bad thing.
Right.
But what I really came to understand through all of it was that the people who were unhappy about work were still unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
People who chose to take personal ownership, as your book says, work from the inside out. The people who took ownership for their own fulfillment were the ones who really got the most from the culture. And that's what I always said to everybody. I'm like, look, I did orientation sessions with all new people in small groups. And I'm like, look, your life is precious. You sleep for a third of it. You have a third of it that you call life. And then a third of your life is working. So
Right.
while we really are doing important work here, and we've talked about it, if you want to do something that matters more to you, by all means, go do it.
Yeah.
Right? Don't stay here because you like the benefits.
Right.
And very few people took me up on that, but a couple of people did. One woman who I was a tremendous employee, and she realized she had an art in carving birds. People would take photos of birds and then she'd carve a statue and she wanted to make a business of it. And she said, thank you. I'm going to go carve birds. I'm like, go for it. So I always hugged everybody when they left and many of them came back. So I think it's really in here where I saw most people. And we asked them, we said, look, what do you think the purpose of the business is? What do you think the dream of this business is? What do you think the future is? And we talked about it, hundreds of us in day-long gatherings with murals to together create a picture of that future.
Right.
That's how much I believed that it really wasn't about me having a vision and selling it to them. It was
Right.
about creating an opportunity for everyone to decide for themselves, is this work I want to care about?
So that
Right.
was part of the root of your book, A Work Life Worth Living. That sounds like the roots were born there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So all this time, people are like, you should go speaking, you should write a book. And I'm like, no, we've got to achieve something. I've got to demonstrate to myself and everybody else that these ideas about the way we treat each other and that we can create a future that matters and that we all know we got to make money. Let's not beat each other over the head
Right.
with the obvious, right?
Right.
That these things matter and that there is a future here for business that's better, but not if it doesn't work as a business. Nobody will care.
Right.
And so we just stuck with that. And I never really talked about it to anybody. I tried not to preach about it like I am now. I finally given myself permission to tell the story. And so what I realized that whole time, as we got new employees coming in and I'm doing these meetings, 20 years go by and they're coming in just like they were 20 years before.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do you think the business exists? People are looking at me like it's a trick question. These are all just young people of all levels, shareholder value. They're giving me answers they think they should. And I'm like, there's a burning need for people to have a place where they can actually talk about this stuff and not fear for their jobs
Right.
and not be dependent upon whether their boss or their boss's boss or the CEO actually wants to talk about this stuff,
Yeah.
right? Because you've got people who think all they do is refrigeration and they don't realize that they're keeping food fresh so that we can feed humanity.
Right.
And we call it the grocery supply chain when really we're all dependent. We
Right.
who live in cities and suburbs are dependent upon this entire ecosystem of
Right.
for-profit companies to bring
Right.
us fresh food so we
Right.
can live. And we're telling all those employees, millions of people, that they exist for shareholder value and a paycheck only when they're feeding us food, when they're building hospitals, right? I can't stand it anymore. I can't stand it. There isn't a business that there's probably a few things that people knowingly know will kill people.
Right.
Okay. It's hard to find a purpose in that.
Right.
But other than that, everybody is contributing something to the
Right.
betterment of everybody else. And so My mission, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. The company went public and I had a significant portion, not a majority, but a significant portion of the company. And so I've diversified. I can do whatever I want. And the one thing I've always dreamed of doing was creating a place where people could come together and support each other in seeing and building and developing and creating deeper meaning and fulfillment in the work they do. And that's meaningsphere.com.
Yeah.
The book is really the answer to two questions. Where did Meaningsphere come from? And who is this guy and can I trust him?
Yeah.
You know, so we'll sell some books, but I could care less about selling books. Meaningsphere exists to be able to support people because my own journey, right? I had all the help in the world and it took me years to figure some of this stuff out, right? Where do people who exist on a regular working person's salary have any option to get any kind of support? So Meaningsphere is intended to be an affordable platform for the vast number of people who work to be able to help each other create more meaningful work lives.
It sounds so simple.
How hard could it be?
Right.
7 years later, here we are.
I love it. I love it. And I know that you've mentioned that some of the work out there from Brene Brown, Adam Grant have been big influences on some of this.
Dan Pink's work
Pink.
has been
Love Dan
hugely
Pink.
influential. In the tech world, there's a fabulous thought leader, super insightful, Kate O'Neill, the tech human. She has been a huge influence. And these folks, Joseph Jaworski, and the book Synchronicity, given to me, my original mentor. And Joseph has been mentoring me for the past 7 years.
Nice.
Because as you know, when you work with so many people, career is not a linear progression like school. It's a crazy quilt.
Right.
And being awake to those moments where a door closes and you think it's a horrible thing,
Right.
but that's the moment to be aware, because every door that closed for me, and there were I went to rehab. I'm 15 years sober. We had a son with autism. There's real hurdles. It's all in the book, but every door that closed or a new hurdle got thrown in our way, another one opened. And those are the opportunities. My father started the company because he was going to get laid off for the third time.
Wow.
They were shutting it down. The parent company was shutting it down. And he's, could I just try this thing? Would you let me just try this thing? And they said, all right. That doesn't mean I'm not sensitive to the pain of change, right? People go through some real heartache, and we made changes that led people through real heartache. And I can never feel totally comfortable that we did the right thing the right way. But there are opportunities in it that are beyond our simple ability to kind of conceive of.
So if people want to participate or learn more, what's the best place for them to do that?
If they want to learn more about themselves and what really drives them in terms of what they find fulfilling about work you're doing right now, meaningsphere.com.
Okay, meaningsphere.com. And everything else that I know you've provided us with other links and other places for people to look, we will have all of that in the show notes.
Great.
I want to wrap up with one final question.
Fair enough.
So a lot of people listening to this are thinking about what's next and what will be meaningful for them. What would be a key piece of advice you might give somebody who's beginning to think about that?
First, know what you really care about. Find somebody not too close to you who has a lot more experience who you can really talk to.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love that. Terrific. Jeff, I can't thank you enough. I wish we had even more time to go through all of this, but I can't encourage people enough to get their hands on your book, A Work Life Worth Living, and check out meaningsphere.com. Jeff, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you for your work, Tammy. I think we're friends for life, whether you want to be or not.
Oh, I know. I definitely want to be.
Be well. Take care.
All right, thanks. Thanks for sticking around to the end of my interview with Jeff Westphal. What is your key takeaway from our conversation? If you are interested in any of the resources mentioned in today's podcast, you can find them in the show notes on my website at tammygoulerloeb.com/podcast. Just look for episode 299. And while you're there, you can also subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes. Did you know that ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts can help this podcast reach more people? Please help me to inspire more people to move their careers in meaningful directions by clicking on the Apple Podcasts button. Leave an honest rating and brief review. Are you anticipating your next professional move? Check out my award-winning book, Work from the Inside Out, Break Through 9 Common Obstacles and Design a Career That Fulfills You. It's available through my website, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores, or through your local library. You can also help sustain the podcast by buying me a cup of coffee at buymeacoffee.com/TammyGL. Since this podcast is self-funded, your support is acknowledged and appreciated. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. I'd love to hear from you. Bye for now.